From Content 360, this is the state of client acquisition. Right, we are live with Ryan Kovach, and we are already in the middle of the conversation, so you guys just join us. We're talking Jiu-Jitsu. Okay, Ryan, where were you?
Yeah, we were discussing the differences, physically with men and women in Jiu-Jitsu. And what I was explaining is, obviously, at the highest levels, your world-class female black belt would be able to absolutely destroy an untrained male, even some trained males that maybe are, blue, purple belt, something like that. But if you're getting at the elite level, probably the top 1,000 men in that weight class could beat the female. And it's just men and women are different, man. They just are.
Yeah, of course. How did you get into Jiu-Jitsu?
Well, Joe Rogan, years ago of just watching UFC 1 and, Joe Rogan becoming, the announcer for the UFC, I really fell in love with the art of the groundwork, whereas a lot of people, a lot of lugheads, they just want to see two guys stand in front of each other and swing, right? Like, I enjoyed the breakdown that Joe Rogan would give. At the time, he was a black belt under Eddie Bravo. Eddie Bravo had several, fighters in the UFC and things like that. And I just loved the breakdown. So Travis Lutter, who fought Anderson Silva for the world title, is right down the street from here. And, he was an early guy, a real pioneer. He was on the Ultimate Fighter TV show and just things like that. So went down, poked around, at his gym and joined some classes and just fell in love with it. Raised my son up in it. My son won worlds, I think 5 times in jiu-jitsu, and my daughter is following in his steps. So
wow, that's amazing. It's
yeah,
really unbelievable. How long did it take you to get to black belt level?
Took 10 years.
10 years.
10 years of teaching, kids and teens, because you as you rank up, they always want you to help out with that class, right? And that's 5-6 days a week, couple of hours, competing all the time and everything. If you don't do all that, there's some guys I know that are 18 years in and still haven't gotten their black belt. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu really protects the black belt. Like, it takes a long time.
Wow.
No one's getting black belts in 5 years, unless you're just BJ Penn or something like that. But it's a very protected belt system. They don't allow anybody under the age of 19 to even be a black belt. Unlike, traditional Taekwondo or karate or whatever, you've got 9-year-olds walking around with black belts on, and it's just ridiculous. So, that's what I like about the art. It's very pure. The mats don't lie. When you get on the mats, they tell the truth. You know exactly where you stand, right? So
love it. And is there anything, let's transition into business, that you learned from jiu-jitsu, although it might be a bit cliche, but is there anything that you've been able to apply for business? Yeah,
I think the number one thing is jiu-jitsu. You are constantly uncomfortable in jiu-jitsu. There is a 200-pound grown man trying to break your arms, your legs, your feet, your neck, whatever. They're on top of you. There's lots of pressure. And, you really learn, and you have to, otherwise you will freak out. Like, you'll get claustrophobic, or you'll freak out from the pressure, right, of that. And so I feel like just the ability to calm down in bad situations and stay under pressure has been the biggest thing that, in my opinion, that is translated into business.
That's great. And I love it that the pressure is absolutely literal in jiu-jitsu, right? It's because the guy's actually lying on top of you, and you just need to figure out, okay, what move can I do now to get myself out of that?
Yeah, exactly. And, as you advance, you learn how to mobilize your pressure and get it into a smaller, denser spot where, I've tapped out plenty of grown men literally just by, getting in side control and laying across from them and pressuring into their diaphragm where they can't breathe. And if you don't have the capabilities to breathe and move and adjust, then you just tap out or else you're going to pass out.
Love it. That's such a great analogy. Awesome. So yeah, let's get right into the topic. It's how did you build a $1 million solopreneur business? Really happy to, and thank you for taking the time to talk about that. Take us to the very beginning. So you run digital marketing agency RK CMC.
RK CMO, yeah.
Oh, sorry, RK CMO. Okay, yeah, of course, CMO.
Yep.
And you specialize in SEO. Is that right?
I specialize. Yes, I have a specialty in SEO, but actually, I do almost a little bit of everything. And that's kind of part of the story. That's how you get to $1 million. I was actually talking about the beginning. So I've been in marketing 20 something years. My mom was an entrepreneur, cut my teeth working for her company, just learning how to run a business. She had a successful business for years. And so in March of 2020, I was the director of a digital marketing agency up in Minneapolis. I was remote and, COVID came and they were a young company coming up, only been in business a couple of years. COVID was brand new. Nobody knew what was going to happen. And so there was a big layoff when all that happened. So at the literal point of the shutdown, March the 16th of 2020, I got sent home like so many marketers. Now, prior to that, I had a large agency. Probably, I say large. I had, a decent sized agency. I had about 15 employees. I had the big 4,500 square foot offices with desks and computers everywhere. I did that whole traditional marketing agency thing, right? And, it had just taken a beating from a lot of the foreigners getting into the business, dropping the prices way down. Ads were going out. Hey, get a brand new website for $150. Just stupid stuff like that, right? So the industry was taking a beating, and the model, in my opinion, just became unsustainable. So I sold it to a couple of the young kids that worked for me. They're still carrying it on. It's still in downtown. They're doing fine. They were just leaner. They didn't have kids, mortgages, and all that, right? So then I went to work for the Minneapolis firm. So when I got laid off, I sat at home for a week or two, just chilling, really trying to think about what it is I do and what I'm good at and what I was going to do. We were facing a new pandemic and a lockdown and all this other stuff. But I saw an opportunity that I knew with all the Zoom and everybody going home and companies becoming fractured, like they were all in the office and having a good time or maybe not having a good time, but they all went home. And I knew that CEOs were going to feel very vulnerable, and they were going to not know what to do quite to the fullest extent because of this pandemic. And I kind of said, there's a flaw in the digital marketing setup, and there's a flaw in being just a consultant. In the digital marketing setup, a company comes and you offer them an SOW. You basically say, here's our scope of work. We're going to do this amount of SEO, this amount of blogs, this amount of social posts, this amount of strategy, this amount of this and that. Here's an itemized list. This is what this costs, this costs, this costs. This is your total monthly, and I want you to sign a 12-month agreement. Okay, right? And that's very normal. That's what typically happens, okay? I knew the psychology behind that is flawed. Number one, you get 4 months in, CEO's not really feeling it, but he knows he's locked in for 12 months, and so there's a grudge. Number two, You get in and you're doing all those itemized things that they've agreed to and you've agreed to for this amount of price, but you realize that it's not really what they need. And now you got to either renegotiate or cancel this or add to it. And you're almost feeling like this lawyer agreement. Like every time I call my agency, it's $100 an hour or $125 an hour. You know, if they send an email for me, I get billed or, you know, whatever, right? And it feels, you know, you don't want to call your attorney, right?
Yeah,
because
of course.
if they lick a stamp, it's $200. Like you don't want to call them. And I'm like, that doesn't make a good relationship. It also creates a very, for the agency, it creates a very big wall that they build so that there isn't scope creep, right? So in other words, you've got this thing that they've agreed to. CEO's like, hey man, you know, I really need something for this event that we're going to. Oh, well, that's outside of the scope. Let me put, you know, so again,
proposal. Yeah.
So let me put together a cost and a proposal and all that. Whereas a consultant over here, now the digital marketing agency, the good news is they can get the work done, right? So they're going to build the website. They're going to do the SEO. They're going to do all that, right? Whereas a consultant over here is saying, this is what you need to do, but now you got to go find the vendors and the people to do it, okay? So you're paying me to give you my knowledge, but there's no delivery. So what I decided to do is to be a fractional CMO to the companies, but I can also do the delivery. And this is where the big key to this conversation comes in. And it's not me being braggadocious or anything like that. But if you want to build $1 million solopreneur business, you got to be really fucking good. Like I can build websites from the ground up. I am certified in SEO and have been since 2009, but I've been in SEO before Google was even a company, right? I mean, I've been involved in search engine optimization before Google. I built my first website in 1998 on Microsoft front page. Okay. I understand local optimization, have spent tons of time in that. I understand technical SEO, on-page, off-page SEO. I'm also, because of a musician, I'm a video editor, creative. You know, we shoot music videos and edit them and have for years for our band and things like that. So I understand color and lighting and all of the things and transitions and the whole thing, right? Because I'm a musician, I can write custom and record custom pieces for, let's say, their radio spot. I can also voice over. So what I'm trying to get at is what I said is I'm going to be a fractional CMO. We're going to get together. I'm going to be your consultant. We're going to put together the strategy. I'm going to sit in your L10 meetings, in your leadership meetings. I'm not just a vendor that you're getting a scope of work. I'm on your team fractionally. However, under my fee, you are also going to get the delivery. Okay. So I'm not just a consultant that's giving you advice, and I'm not just a digital marketing agency that's locked you into a certain amount of work. The delivery I do myself. So if I recommend they need a new web page, or if I recommend they need a new app or whatever, I build it personally. I work directly with the company and build it. Now, the key is I don't have a lot of customers. I have 10. That's it. So in order for me to reach $1 million in revenue, I knew I needed a blend. I wanted my fee to be flat. I don't want to itemize and keep up with hours. I don't want to set the clock when I'm doing work on my little timekeeper. I don't want to do all that. Here's your flat rate. It's per month. Cancel at any time. You can fire me just like you would a CMO. I don't require 12-month agreements, 6-month agreements, or anything. You don't like me after a month, tell me to walk down the road. So at 10 companies, you get a mixture of some 15,000 a month retainers, a mixture of some 5, some 3, and all of that. And quite literally, all you got to do is hit the $80,000 a month mark.
Yeah.
And million company. Now, why would a company pay me $15,000 to $20,000 a month? And I don't have many of those. I got like 2 that do that, right? They understand that a CMO's salary on average, and it can go way above this, but average is $174,000 a month plus benefits.
A year.
Plus benefits plus everything else, right? When they break that down, their total cost is in the couple of $100,000 a year, but they're not getting delivery, right? The CMO is in there for he's in there for guidance. He's an officer. He's guiding and working with their internal marketing team, right? Or putting the strategies together, but they're not getting they're not getting the delivery. They still have to either hire internal staff or outsource it, right? Make sense?
Absolutely.
So
brilliant.
if I go to a construction company that has 200 salespeople, this is an actual client of mine. They have 200 salespeople. They've got, they don't understand marketing. They understand construction. They've got office managers internally and everything else. But what they really need is they need a strategy for marketing. They need a really good website that's really optimized, that when people are looking for a roofer, it comes up, it's there, it's in front of them. They need ads that are run during, peak season and storm seasons and things like that, if they're doing roofing and everything else. It's worth it to them to pay me $20,000 a month all day long.
Mm-hmm.
Every Monday morning, I'm at their meeting, their L10 leadership meetings. I'm in the room. I'm in the room hearing everything about the company, and then putting together the marketing plan for that and making sure that those leads are coming through the door. So that's how you do it. You have to be really good. You have to understand all facets of marketing. You've got to understand how to write content. You've got to understand how to optimize web pages and build them. You have to understand how to edit video, transcribe them, use things like Social Pilot or Hootsuite to get everything scheduled out and all of that. But you don't need a lot of clients. You need 10. And you have bi-weekly meetings with them, or every week, or whatever you want to do. Set the strategy in place. You do the delivery, and you do it well. And it's worth it. It's worth it for them. And interestingly enough, the average CMO, tenure within a company is less than 18 months. In some cases, it's 4 months and 6 months. I mean, CMOs get brutalized, right? Like, they come into a company and, there's just, it's very difficult for CMOs to retain long-term tenure, right? And that's because a lot of times CEOs don't understand marketing. And so CEOs have a different opinion, they have different ideas, and the CMO is just not in lockstep, with what the CEO wants. Where I feel like my model of fractional CMO becomes more attractive is I'm not in there building 8 hours a day, every day, as this lump of shit over in this office collecting a salary. And the CEO feels like, I don't know, man, this guy's just not really doing our marketing that well. Let's fire him, right? I think on this relationship, the way I have my relationship is they still feel like the CEO. They still feel like they're in charge. If there's a pivot that needs to be made, I will make it with them. And I won't argue with them. I don't really argue with my clients. I mean, I'll tell them sometimes I don't think that's the right move, but I don't argue with them. Whereas I think an internal CMO would argue a little bit more and stand their ground and get a little pissy and things like this. No, you're my client. You want to pivot? Let's pivot, right? I'll tell you what my professional opinion is, but I'm not going to get upset or feel as if I work for this company and they're not listening to me. Does that make sense? Whereas if you were internal, that's what you would feel.
Especially because you would have much more ego flying with it, right? Because this is your only gig.
Company, it's your one thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So that ego is going to be like, man, CEO is not really liking my stuff, and I don't know if I like it here, you know. So everything's going to be very personal. Everything's going to feel very, you know, like you're being attacked. For me, CEO calls and says, you know, need to make a move. We're not digging this. We want to pivot over here. Great, let's go. They're not getting that. They're not getting that offense. You know, the person's not feeling offended.
Okay.
So,
Great.
you know, that's how you do it. It's that simple, but yet complicated. I will say, never ran an ad. I didn't spend a dime. You know, I connected. I, you know, wrote a lot of content, sent it out in emails. By the way, email lists are tops in my opinion. You know, I sent out emails. I wrote clear, concise emails as to why, you know, this model works and what the benefits are. And honestly, Michael, I was unemployed for about 2 weeks. Started building that email list, sending it out, started getting the interest and the, you know, generating interest. And within a few months, you know, of being let go, within a very short few months, I was already billing, I don't know, 50, 60,000 a month.
Very impressive. Now, the first question that came to me as soon as you mentioned that you do everything is, what if there are like peaks in work? Like building a website is, at least for a large-ish company who already has a website, you need to import various different things and so on, could be a lot of work. So do you subcontract some of the work, or do you literally do everything for them and then work on the others has to wait?
I'm subcontract, but let me also, so that's a great question. I have companies, most of my clients have pretty decent revenue, but they still operate as a small business. That's the key. What I mean by that is, I have a client that's a general contractor, does big projects. You know, he's not building backyard buildings. He's building multi-use, you know, major facilities that are housing and restaurants and wave pools and shit all in one thing, right? Like big stuff. High revenue company, but there's only 5 people in the company. Okay. They're a general contractor. They're managing $80 million company.
Wow.
But there's only 5 people. Okay. I'm not building out tens of thousands of pages. I'm building out a really nice B2B general contractor website. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they need to have their appearance in a market, and, you know, and that's it. I mean, it's not like I'm sitting and building out an Amazon or something. It's much more manageable. So the thing is, you have to understand who your audience is, how you help them. That's vitally important. Like another company, they're a $150 million company. Okay. They have a lot of recruiters within their organization, but I don't have anything to do with them. I'm only working with 2 guys in the company, the CEO and the chief technical officer. Still run very much like a smaller family business. I have direct access to them. It's a calm relationship. It's not super high stress. And they have about 5 moving parts that they want done. And we just get them done. It's worth it to them to pay the price to have the guy that they can lean on and that just, you know, sets the strategy correct and then gets the work done. So I'm not going into situations where, you know, there's tons of decision makers. There's a board of directors that has to approve. I'm not messing with any of that garbage. I'm finding high revenue companies that still operate like a small family-owned business. And if you can locate those, that's where the best relationships are. and that's where the bread and butter is.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now, absolutely, thank you. So still on the topic of workload,
Mhm.
I wonder, would you, for example, when somebody thinks up a new marketing initiative, would you then say, okay, but that will be considerably more work, we have to adjust our monthly retainer?
I've had to do that a couple of times, but quite frankly, no. I know what my output is. I know what I'm capable of doing, and in reality, again, I'm covering what I would call the upper level basics. I'm not out doing focus groups. I'm not out, physically doing events or event management. I mean, I'm not doing anything like that. We're making sure that their message is on point, that their social is scheduled and regular, that their image is the way they want to be portrayed, that their website is operating effectively and driving curiosity about their brand, and that they're ranking well for the things that people need to find them for, and things like that. It's honestly just your general pillars of marketing, and all that. I can take the first 2 days of the month because it's only 10 clients, and I can sit and create their organic social posts, 20 posts in a few hours, schedule them out, and then go to the next company. And by the end of the second or third day of the month, all social organic has been created, approved, and scheduled. So that's done. Now we're looking at any kind of optimization, any kind of new blogs, any emails that they want to send out, that type of thing, right? Some of it is so well oiled now. They've been with me a couple of years. Some of it's just so well oiled that, I mean, we now only meet once a month and it's on autopilot.
Yeah.
And
Man,
so, yeah.
Such a great model. Such a great model. How long did it take you to actually get to that 86K or so run rate a month?
So, yeah, it took me about a year.
Yeah. Spectacular. Yeah. So for anyone listening, just imagine this. So if you start at zero, you're so good in your profession that you start at zero. Within the first few months, you get to 50, 60K. And then a year later, you hit $1 million a year run rate. And that is, I think, the reason why this is very hard to replicate, despite what you said before in your comment. I would sort of challenge you on that maybe. I don't think that anyone can do that.
No.
It is because you are such a, sorry to use this cliche term, but Swiss Army knife of marketing, that pretty much everything. You can run ads, you can do SEO, you can do organic social, all the tools. You stay up to date.
Michael, a lot of people do. Like if you really dig into creatives and you start meeting marketing folks, you'll find, I mean, they've got a strong knowledge in SEO. They know how to build websites. They know how to write blogs and content and stuff. Here's what they lack. So to peel back some of the onion layers, in my lifetime, I have started 4 businesses in 4 different industries that have all done at least $1 million in revenue per year. Some much more than that, that have nothing to do with marketing. I saw an opportunity, started them, built them, and sold them. Right. I think for anybody considering this model, you also have to understand the mindset of an entrepreneur or a CEO. You have to know business. I think the marketing a ton of people have. I think tons of people can optimize, run ads, manage, some email marketing, write really good copy and content and everything else. What they lack is the ability to connect with the CEO in a way that the CEO trusts them to hand the keys of the kingdom over. If you have that thing, right, then you can do this model. If you are truly just a marketer, no one's ever going to trust to hand over that type of money.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Well, and so even more so than you sort of set the bar even higher. The reason why they trust you is not only because you are a marketing Swiss Army knife who, and a quick parenthesis on that point, because we recently discussed it. I don't know in what context. There's so much great stuff going on LinkedIn. But we talked about how you really have to be a tinkerer. You have to be actually willing to try all kinds of different things. In our conversation last week,
Yep.
you mentioned, for example, that how you set up this, I don't know if I say it correctly, that ghost account, so that you test whether if you express yourself politically in a different way than you normally do, that you will get better results on Google. And indeed you have. So you are like a proper tinkerer. So that's
Yes.
one thing. So besides that, parenthesis closed, you also need to have a proper CEO's mindset. And the best way to actually get that is to have been there and done that. So the
Correct.
reason why they trust you with 20 grand as a fractional CMO is because they simply know that there is the substance there that they would not have with someone who has just been a CMO.
Yeah, that, or, again, I've met some super talented 25-year-olds that honestly are great at SEO. They're great at building websites. They can write blogs. I mean, they can get in and create super attractive graphics for organic social posts and this and that. They know the platform of Facebook, the ad platforms. They know LinkedIn ad platforms and all that. But they're going to sit back and say, tell me what you want me to do, and I'll do it. And that is still indicative of the digital marketing agency model. Like, you tell us what you need, we'll put a scope of work together, tell you how much it costs, and then we'll go do it. I mean, technically, if you hire a really good agency, they'll have a great strategist and they'll help you, right? I get that. That's their job. But again, it's very vendor-ish, if that makes sense, as opposed to Ryan is our guy or Michael is our guy. He's on our team. Yes, he's fractional, but he's our guy, right?
Absolutely. And where I don't have to have this issue in my head that I'm going to get billed for sending them an email and they'll have to respond. It's going to take them 20 minutes and I'm going to get another line item on the itemized bill at the end of the month.
Just psychologically, it creates a lawyer relationship, and nobody wants to call their lawyer. And you don't want your marketing to feel that way. Like, you want to have full access to marketing without feeling as if, I don't really want to call them, I'm going to get a bill, or I need to really pivot. What we're doing is not working, or I don't feel it's working. And I need to pivot, but I really don't want to go through the whole proposal, bull crap again and everything else. So again, yes, I don't think the bar is that high. And I mean, I do think you need to be really, really good at what you do. And I do think you need to understand business. But I think if we want to put this to scale, Michael, like, we're talking $1 million right now. But let's say you wanted to make $350,000 a year doing what I'm doing. Tone it down a little bit. Approach $2 million a year companies instead of 80, right? Offer them to be their true, CMO strategist with delivery involved. Maybe you're not doing 20,000 a month or 10 or 15. Maybe you're doing 2,000 a month retainer for 10 companies. You do that, you're at $250,000, maybe 3,000 a month or whatever. It's manageable. You're not having to run ads. Once you get your 10 locked in, keep it high level, high touch, weekly meetings, get it done. And you're a guy that gets to work from anywhere you want on your laptop, and make, 200,000, 300,000, 400,000 a year.
Absolutely. Great. Now, in terms of, I love the fact, I want to get back to this topic of your niche. Do you say niche or niche? What's your preference?
Both. Depends on who you're speaking to.
Yeah. So because you mentioned high revenue companies that operate like a small business. Within that, do you have all kinds of industries at relatively differing sizes, or is there also a theme in the industry and revenue size makeup?
A big portion of my business is in staffing because my mom owned a staffing company. I grew up in it. I've been immersed in it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So staffing agencies, they can have very high revenue and make a really good amount of money and still just be one location with 8 employees.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still literally working one-on-one with the owner, the founder, the CEO, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
and so, yes, that's now law firms. You get into a law firm that's downtown. They've got one location. They've got maybe 6, 7 lawyers and 10 support staff. So 16 people, right? They need billboards. They want commercials for their podcasts created and voiceover and have custom music so they're not paying royalties, right? They want to come up when somebody searches for, personal injury attorney near me, that type of thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
But, they're in a glass building downtown. They're, a $50 million a year, law firm, but it's still small.
Mm-hmm.
Another example of a client that's a very good client is a real estate agent here in town. He's not your average guy. He is the real estate agent to the stars. I mean, he is every house he's got listed, and in Fort Worth, $3 and $4 million is a big house, I know in California it may not be in other areas, but in Fort Worth, when you get into the $3 and $4 and $5 million homes, it's mansion stuff, right? I mean, that's his world. His offices are super swanky. He's downtown. He's probably got 4 or 5 agents working for him, maybe 6 or 7 additional support staff. The guy, from what I understand, is his real estate commissions, are in the, 500,000 a month range, which is fantastic, right? $20,000 a month is nothing for him to make
Mm-hmm.
sure that he's, looking good, sounding good, and that his listings are always current, that, he can market his portfolio in a good way. He's not a high volume. He's not selling, 50 houses a month. He's selling 10. He needs those listings to be correct, look nice, presented on the website correctly, and all that, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's chump change to him to pay that, to make sure that he's got my ear. I'm on his payroll, so to speak, and all that. So again, maybe 12, 13 people max, still run like a family business, but very high revenue.
Mm-hmm. Are all of those clients remote, or do you also have to travel to see them?
All of my clients, I've got 2 local. The rest are all over the country, and it's all just Zoom meetings.
Oh, just a minute. So you never, even on the local ones, you never meet them in person?
Local ones I do. I go by and physically sit in their boardroom meetings. Yep.
Okay. Okay, great.
The rest, I'm just on a Zoom meeting in their leadership meetings. The local ones, I go out, I suit up, I sit in their in all of their strategy meetings, and I'm face to face.
That's when the tacky suits come out.
Yeah, that's when my tacky fat ass gets up and goes and does all that, right?
Excellent.
Inside joke, guys. Inside joke.
Inside joke. Exactly. So let's quickly, what I'm interested in, of course, is the beginnings of this. How you mentioned you send out a couple of emails. Was it to people you already knew, where you suspected they might need somebody like you? Was it more cold, en masse? How did you do that? What was your first client acquisition strategy?
Yeah, a lot of it was cold. I didn't want to. I didn't want to lose my job from COVID and then, sound like the desperate guy calling up my business buddies. They were going through trying to figure out COVID too, right? And I didn't want to be the friend or the network, knowing somebody and saying, "Hey, I lost my job. Will you hire me?" I didn't feel like that was a good strategy, because it puts pressure on them to have to tell me no or yes or whatever. So I went cold. I literally poked around, looked at people that were asking questions on LinkedIn about different, marketing strategies or whatever. And I would just comment on their comment or on their post, "Hey, I've got some insight into this. I'd love to share it with you. Let me know if you want to meet," kind of a thing. I did have I did have an email list of staffing agencies that I had procured over the years, and I did send out some emails just stating, there's a better way. Here's a model that you might want to consider, and I got a lot of buzz on that. Now, I mean, there have been, to get to that 10, there was 100 people that said, "Sure, we'd love to see a proposal," and they get it. And they're like, "Oh, no, we're not paying that." Cool.
Yeah,
Have a good day.
of course. No, that's the reality of sales. Perfectly normal.
Yeah, I mean, it's perfectly normal. I mean, so you got to be okay with being told no. But I mean, at the end of the day, it's really not that difficult. I just think you have to know business, and you have to be able to give an owner the calm feeling that they're in good hands.
And also that the basics are ticked, that they are doing at least that they are not making any fundamental problems, right?
Correct.
Sorry, that they are not committing any fundamental errors in their marketing. They
have
don't
a
need
sound, robust plan going.
Exactly. Great.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so, I mean, again, when you calculate the cost, I mean, there's a thing called the prospect theory. So if you're into neuromarketing, neuroscience, prospect theory is very well researched. People are far more interested in avoiding a loss than they are creating a gain. For instance, if I said, do you want this $50 bill, or do you want to lose the $50 in your pocket? Human psychology says, I don't want to lose the $50 in my pocket. I'd love to have that 50 you're offering me, but I don't want to lose the $50 in my pocket. It goes much deeper than that, right?
Yeah.
But when you approach this business model, you have to say to the CEO, if you hired a CMO, that's their cost. You still have to pay for a web developer, a content writer, that. So the cost is extraordinarily higher than what I'm quoting you. You are not only having full access to me as opposed to some vendor, but you're not losing a bunch of money. You just have to be able to communicate that benefit.
Okay. So maybe this is my slightly Germanic being very precise with things, but when you started, like you sent out the first proposals and so on, you also probably must have created at least some kind of scope of work. No, like I proposed that. No, really nothing.
My contract is one page. It states that anything and everything we do is yours. All the intellectual property, graphics, anything that we come up with is the property of the company, and that you can cancel at any time.
But then how do you decide whether this is a $3,000 a month client versus 20,000?
Yeah, great question. I decide that honestly with intuition. There are companies that have contacted me, and they're like, look, we know what our budget is that we have, right? And Ryan, we're not going to be super high end, super demanding. What we really need is just to make sure that we're hitting all the touch points. Can you tell us what that looks like and what you would do? We just want to make sure that we're presenting well.
Mhm.
We don't want somebody going to our blog and seeing that the last time a blog was written was in November of last year, right?
Yeah.
Like, we don't want somebody going to our Facebook page and seeing that we haven't posted something in 6 months, right? We want to have the appearance of being active,
Mhm.
but we're not asking you to drive leads. We're not expecting you to increase revenue. We're not expecting you to, train our team or do anything, right?
Yeah.
We want a full circle, just make us have the proper appearance.
Mhm.
And we're satisfied with that.
That's
Okay.
very interesting. Sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay, here's what I can do. We can look at a $3,000 a month retainer, and I'm going to make sure that you get that. You're gonna present well.
Okay. And that then means, of course, in your head, you probably at that point are thinking, all right, that means I'm going to have to do like maybe 2 Facebook posts a week and 2 LinkedIn posts and so on. So you sort of tally it up in your head and you think, okay, that would probably be worth 3 grand. And I'm fine with that. It's going to take me like 2 days a month, maybe,
Yeah. I mean,
or 1 day or whatever, half a day, something like that.
I hope none of my clients are watching this. Sometimes I'm like, you know, sometimes I'm like, I know that they could go get this for 1,000 a month.
Mm.
It's and they could from a delivery, right?
Yes. Yes.
But what they lose is their direct access to me. They can call me, sometimes they do, at 8 o'clock at night. What do you think about this? Right? Or um, all of that. Number two, they know that I'm going to really understand their business, their tone, their voice, and they can just rest in that comfort. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, that they're not gonna wake up to some Facebook post. It's gonna be all weird, like, "Who wrote this?" Like, that kind of stuff. When you have somebody in a low-paying, low-cost country who's like, "What the hell? This is crazy. Take that
They're going to
down."
use, a lot of times they're going to use imagery that's reflective of their country.
Yeah.
Um, Stock photos can appear culturally just off.
Mm.
The text, just is superficial and crap, but it's checking the boxes, right? Whereas I get to know my clients really well. The imagery is going to look like them, the tone is going to look like them, and it's going to sound like them, and they can just rest in that.
Very interesting, because one thing that I think is something that sort of my weakness is that I always try to improve my clients, right? It's part of what I do, right? I'm essentially a coach and people come to me when they don't have skills. I help them to develop the skills. What you just said sounds very much like I'm going to be making sure that you look good. I'm going to be checking your boxes, but I'm not going to be coming with innovative ideas and telling you should change, lead gen is outdated, you should do demand gen and so on. You are not the revolutionary inside the company who's trying to push and forge a new path. Is that right?
It's right in most cases. Now, as the retainer price goes up, the revolutionary Ryan has to come out.
Yeah, because that's
It
where
is
you also add the big value.
right. So
Yeah.
yes, there are scenarios with a couple of my clients where I am truly driving the innovation. But in many cases, that's not the situation.
Hmm.
I do think it's highly, highly important that marketers understand this. I have outsourced things through my other agency. I've outsourced a few things with this one just because I was going on vacation or just got a little overloaded or whatever. And I will say, like, um, the biggest thing I think marketers where they drop the ball, especially outsourced gig or lower cost solutions, is they don't they have such a hard time understanding how to speak the tone of the company.
Hmm.
That's so important. You know, if you outsource a blog to a lot of blog writers, they're going to give you a nice technical article maybe. But there's a personality to every business. There's a personality to every company.
What are your steps that you take that you get the personality of the company?
Yeah, great question. I spend a lot of time with the CEO. I do. I spend a lot of time with them. I spend a lot of time with their staff. I want to know, like, I speak to their staff. I want to know what, you know, forget what the tagline is on the wall, the mission statement on the wall. I want to know what you, Susie, in accounting think this company's mission is and culture.
Mhm.
You tell me what you think it is. You know, I want to know those things because you'll get a lot of different answers. I mean, the CEO may have on there, we want to change the world and put, you know, shoes on every child and feed the hungry, right? Susie in accounting may think, well, you know, we sell shoes, and we just want to make sure that our shoes don't fall apart. Like, we want them to be high quality. You know what I mean? Like, you get different feedback from everybody in the company. But I want to talk to them about who they are. You know, what's your situation? Like, what do you and your wife do on the weekends? Like, who are you? You know, it makes, because we've only done 2 of these now. But if I were a client of yours, even just after 2 of these lives that we've had, you know that you're probably going to approach Ryan Kovach and his business very, very different based on my personality and what you know about me. You're going to approach my business very different than you are, you know, Susie Q or Billy Bob over there that you've spoken to, and they're much different people.
Yes. Yes, that's for sure. That's for sure. Okay.
Where
So
I feel like digital marketing agencies lose that a lot of times because they're so focused on data and numbers and leads that they're forgetting,
dashboards.
and dashboards, that they're forgetting the founders, the CEOs, the owners. They are a person, and they have belief systems, and they have styles, and all of that. And I think that you have to be keen to that.
Do you then summarize your, I used to do that. My clients appreciated that. I wonder what you think of it. I then, after doing these types of conversations, I compiled an essence of their tone of voice. It was like the tone of voice document. And there I brought in different examples as to why that is. And as part of that research process, I also asked the CEO, can you share an article with me that you've read somewhere else where you think, I love this. This is how I want us to sound.
1,000%. I want to see, I mean, this is surface level, but I want to see what websites you think are cool. I want to see, you know, if I lay 3 images out of downtown Fort Worth, one's going to be skyrise buildings, another one's going to be, you know, people out on the lawn relaxing, another one's going to be, you know, a helicopter ride, you know, over the city. Another one's going to be the horses and the cowboys because we're in Fort Worth, right? Which one of these images do you pick? You know, what is your style on management? You know, do you lead with the heavy hand? Are you a no nonsense, you know, military guy that, you know, wants rank and file, or are you, you know, Dan Price, who is Jesus Christ, and can do no wrong, right? Like, who are you? I'm going to treat Dan Price's account far different than I'm going to treat Jocko Willick's account.
Would you work for Dan Price?
As long as he paid me a living wage.
70,000 a year you would get.
Okay.
Pretty solid. It's pretty solid.
I mean, I have still asked 1 million people what a living wage is, and I cannot get an answer.
Yeah, I wonder. Well, it's so when I lived in London, it was defined, and I think it's always like that. It's defined as like 50% above the minimum wage, whatever it's being set as.
Yeah, but I mean, in communist Russia back in the day, I mean, they thought they were giving you a living wage, even though you
Yeah.
were at the bread line, you were living.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know, but
But honestly, given that, yeah, no, it would no, probably he would not qualify because he would only pay you 70,000, which is not, it's less than average of what your clients pay you, so probably not.
oh, yeah,
I wouldn't go for it.
yeah, everybody thinks he pays well. I think it's shit.
Yeah.
I wouldn't
Awesome.
work for him for that. I'm just joking. No,
Cool.
but again, seriously, I mean, you're going to treat Dan Price's account far, even though it's marketing, even though it's
Mhm.
SEO, even though it's content, even though it's web, even though it's marketing, you are truly going to treat him very
Mhm.
different than if you, like I said, at Jocko Willick's account,
Yeah, yeah.
hard charging, military mindset, no nonsense. Don't make excuses. Pull yourself up by your bootstraps. I promise the way you market him looks nothing like the way. So you have to understand that.
Mhm. Okay, great. Final question for me. What's your plan to, or is there a plan for you to grow beyond that, to scale that, or are you happy with where you're at? You're going to keep it there?
I have made attempts. In 2021, I said, you know what, man, I am going to grow. And I hired a full team. I hired a couple of social people, a couple of content folks. I mean, in a matter of a few weeks, like I hired a brand new team of people, even got an office, set it all up, did the whole thing. And what I found is I absolutely hated it. I don't understand people anymore. I don't understand employees anymore. I'm probably an old dinosaur. The constant, mindset of young marketers, wanting 4-day work weeks and, arriving at 9:30 and leaving at 2, just because, and things like that was driving me insane. I was getting some complaints from the clients that, they didn't feel as if the work was as quality as it once was. And at the time, I was also trying to bring in new accounts. And what it did is it distracted me. I became sales again. I became talking to a bunch of new clients or potential prospects again. I was trying to manage a staff of people I don't understand anymore. I come from more old school, show up to work, it's 8 to 5. We work hard. Customer is, may not always be right, but they're right always. And give them your very, very best. Right.
Yeah.
And that mindset doesn't really fly today.
Yeah.
So I'm just better on my own. And at the end of the
Mm.
day, too, when I had the big agency, I had, or a bigger agency, again, like 15 internal employees. I had the full office, the whole thing. And we were in the traditional marketing model. Company was successful. I mean, I think we were 3.2 million in revenue and all of that. But at the end of the day, like my take home was less.
Yeah,
than it
I
is
was thinking.
my stress was 10 times more. We were managing 100 and something clients as opposed to 10, and just employees and benefits and taxes and IRS and all of these other things. Like my personal life wasn't as good with a more appearing successful company than it is as a solopreneur, keeping things small, tight, and higher income, right?
Love it. Love it. Absolutely. I can totally imagine. And with the, yeah, it's just you simply have just much lower stress levels with that. And then you can gradually replace let's say smaller accounts where you feel maybe you're not adding as much value anymore, or you might also at some point decide to say goodbye to a client. If you get someone, you can replace the 3K a month account with another 20K a month account, right? And if you get 10 clients who pay you 20K a month, you're going to make what, 2.4 something a year, 2.4 million. That's a pretty nice business to have.
Nice business, right? I think those $20,000 a month, doing 10 by yourself would get crazy. So I like the mixture. I've got a lot of them just in the 5 to 7.
Yeah.
But
well, honestly, maybe this is something. Have you considered to ask for a, like, let's say, revenue share or profit share?
I've been approached by companies that want to do that. But man, when you wake up each day and you can have your coffee and you can look at things and say, I'm going to bill 70, 80, 85,000 this month.
It's a good feeling. It's a good feeling. Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? Like, at some point you're just kind of like, I don't really even want to try that.
Yeah. Exactly.
Now, if I was starving, I'd take it, right?
Yeah. Or if you, I mean, the reason why I'm mentioning this, don't know if you know Evan Thompson. He's been kind of in the Anrik and my orbit. He's a great guy, and he has fewer clients than you, but on average makes a huge amount from them because he does profit shares, right? So he can expect, I don't want to disclose anything, but I think he mentioned it publicly anyway, that there's going to be like 6 figures plus from many of them per year, right? So that's simply another option. I think if you prove your value to them and are willing to, let's say, okay, hey, let's make this more dynamic, let's decrease my monthly retainer, but include that. If you see a path forward that's going to grow them, could be a really good add-on. Don't try it right from the start. Maybe
ones I've been approached to do that tend to be startups, and I do think that they've got big trajectories and all of that and everything else. I'm, my client base, and I don't know, I just happen to. It's just where I always end up just kind of falling. Like, it's just more natural. They've been in business 15 years, 20 years. They're well established and things like that. So I think for me to go in and ask for that type of arrangement would feel awkward with them. Now,
absolutely,
the startups, the high growth potential companies, sure, I think it makes sense. The only reason I shy away from that a lot of times is they are going to be hair on fire. And not to sound lazy at all, I mean, I've worked my ass off for my clients, but when you've got a company that's 80 million in revenue, well established, been in business 12, 15 years, whatever, they're demanding and they want things right and they need it right, but it's not make or break, and you're in that make or break environment. You got to dance. You got to dance.
Oh yeah, definitely. Awesome. Ryan, that was so interesting, so insightful. Is there anything I forgot to ask you that is part of this whole success combination that you have told us about here? Anything that still like another piece in the puzzle that we need to know?
Yeah. If you're considering this model, probably 33%, so 3 or 4 out of those 10 is when I have a great relationship with somebody and they begin to trust me. I literally you have to ask. I pick up the phone and say, hey, Bob or Susie, who in your circle do you think could use my services? And inevitably, one of my clients here recently was like, I work with this architecture firm. They're doing great things. They do a lot of the drawings for the stuff we're building and everything else. And I know that he's really been poking around and seeing what I'm doing, and he's asked who's done it, and and he's probably got some interest. You can strike while the iron's hot, and of course they're now a client. So you need to ask. Don't be afraid to to ask. Prove
Mhm.
yourself first, but then always ask your customers if they can refer you. I
Absolutely.
just think that's, I know that's simple business and it's nothing revolutionary to say that, but just be surprised how many people won't ask.
Excellent. Ryan, super interesting. Thank you so much for taking the time. And obviously, if people want to get in touch with you because they think you'd be a great CMO for them, are you still taking on new clients? Is that a thing, or
I'll entertain. Yeah.
you'll entertain the idea?
Yeah. I'm, like you, there are some customers that, they know that if something comes along that I don't want to say is better, but they're aware of where they sit with me. Right.
Mhm.
Um, so I always want those conversations.
Exactly.
I always want to entertain the conversation.
Exactly. Keep the door open.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you, sir.
You bet.
Excellent talking to you.
You too.
The State of Client Acquisition is a Content 360 production. Music by Gavin Knox-Grant. To sign up for alerts and to submit written and audio questions, go to stateofclientacquisition.com.
Loose sleeves in this high-speed condition. Montreal girls in the tail end of winter. Caffeine burned, wide awake dreams in color. Blood on my hands.